Shalom, brothers and sisters. Grace be unto you and peace from YAHUAH the Father and Yahushua the Messiah, his Son. This is Brother David coming to you again with another controversy. Israelites, the lawless ones. Have you ever heard the statement that a picture speaks 1,000 words? What about this picture? Pure lawlessness. One of the brothers were killed in Boston, so they decided to go protest. A police officer shot down another young black man. And somehow, in some way, every time we have a peaceful protest, there's always the lawless faction that comes in. The regular protest is not documented. The only part that the news wants to report on is this part. It's called civil disobedience. You see the cameraman here? The news reporter? This is the problem. This will be in the forefront, not the brother who got killed, but this brother who is committing this lawless and egregious act. He's going to be the one that's on television. This will be what they will discuss, not that the black man was murdered by the police. This takes the attention away from what happened to the young man. The only thing they're going to see is this. Now, do you see how he's looking towards us? All of the cameramen are behind him. He's looking at the cameramen. They're probably barking instructions to him. See how he's broken the window? Looks like the other brothers are either trying to turn the car over or take the wheels off. I can guarantee you that this car that they're destroying has nothing to do with either the police officer who shot the young man or anyone affiliated with the police department. They just chose a random car to take out their frustrations on. This is why they look down upon us. This is how they're able to keep their claims going. We give them the ammunition to speak about us as lawless. Let's begin. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 13 to 15. Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for YAHUAH's sake. Can we stop for one moment? The first word is submit yourselves to every ordinance. What the brother was doing there, there's a law against that, civil disobedience. He was breaking this. And then it tells you for YAHUAH's sake. Why is it saying for YAHUAH's sake? Because you are his people who are called by his name, Yazrael. You represent him. You have blasphemed his name. Whether it be to the king as supreme, verse 14, or unto governors, as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers. Who set up all of these kings and governments? YAHUAH. They have to punish you for evil and for the praise of them that do well, and praise you for doing good. Verse 15, for so is the will of the Mighty One. This is his will, not Peter's, not Paul's, not the apostles, not the Messiah. This is the will of YAHUAH, that with well-doing ye may put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. If you do well, brothers and sisters, they won't have any claims against us. They can no longer call us lawless, niggers, coons, criminals. That's what they want to see, is you act the fool so that they can speak against you, brothers and sisters. We tend to think that we are a part of this society, but we're not. Harriet Tubman said, "I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew that they were slaves." That is the problem. We think that we have arrived. We think we have rights. Freedom of speech. We have the right to protest. We have the right not to get shot down in the streets. We have the right not to be thrown into jail for nothing. No, you don't. History has showed you that, but yet you're in this delusion that you are a part of this society called America. But listen to what else Harriet Tubman had to say. "I had crossed the line of which I had so long been dreaming." What line was that? I was free. So even to dream about this, you're crossing the line. "But there was no one to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land." So with all the people that she freed, 1,000 slaves, she said, there was no one to welcome them. She is a stranger here. So are you. They're not going to include you in their society. You're a monkey. You're a dog. To them, you're nothing but another nigger. Ogden Politics. Slavery by Another Name is a 90-minute documentary that challenges one of America's most cherished assumptions. I wonder what assumption is that? The belief that slavery in this country ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. That's what they taught us in school. The film tells us how even as chattel slavery came to an end in the South in 1865, thousands of African Americans were pulled back into forced labor with shocking force and brutality. Did you know about this? As soon as they thought they were free, the United States of America showed them something new. It was a system in which men, often guilty of no crime at all, were arrested, compelled to work without pay, repeatedly bought and sold, and coerced to do the bidding of masters. Listen, tolerated by both the North and South. Forced labor lasted well into the 20th century. So that's even till today, brothers and sisters. The North and the South. You don't have to be guilty of a crime. The only crime that you have is your skin color. See 12 Years a Slave. The brother was a free man. When they were doing their roundups, they rounded him up and sold him back into slavery. Where was he at? He was in the North. The same place that Harriet Tubman was taking the slaves to freedom. But yet, they found no one to welcome them to this America. So our brothers had it wrong. We ran to the North, seeking freedom, seeking jobs, seeking independence. What did we find? Slavery again. The 13th Amendment, Section 1. Listen to this. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So, under this amendment, if you commit a crime, you are still a slave. They have this in their books. This is the only country that has these laws on the book to make you a slave if you commit a crime. They try to say it's generic. It's for whites, blacks, Spanish, anyone that comes to this country. But remember, the 13th Amendment was only added after 1865 to deal with the slavery issue. So even though they supposedly released you from chattel slavery, if you commit a crime, you're still a slave. There's so many laws on the books that you can just walk out in the streets and be arrested for a crime that you knew nothing about. Walking on the street while black, and you're going to get arrested. And the brothers know about this. They're living it. Slavery today. And you thought that you were free. You thought that you were a part of this society. Harriet Tubman tells you, no one is going to accept you. No one is going to be there to receive you. You're a slave and you are a stranger in a strange land. UN. After a history of racial terrorism, U.S. owes black people reparations. This recommendation was part of a study by the United Nations Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent. This group reports to the International Organization's High Commissioner on Human Rights. They provided their findings to the United Nations Human Rights Council on Monday. This is in 2016, by the way. They found that present injustices found around the country are linked to the darkest chapters in U.S. history. What dark chapters could that be? In particular, the legacy of colonial history, enslavement, racial subordination and segregation, racial terrorism, and racial inequality in the United States remains a serious challenge, as there has been no real commitment to reparations. No, there hasn't. This is the only country in the world that is still carrying these out, these crimes, carrying them out on their citizens, well, their so-called citizens, because they're showing us by their actions that we're not a part of this thing and they'll never accept us. And to truth and reconciliation for people of African descent, the report read, contemporary police killings and the trauma that they create are reminiscent of the past racial terror of lynching. The white men in this country are terrorists. We've been saying this stuff for years. People are it took them 400 years to realize this. The world is actually watching, brothers and sisters. While the only country in the world that still has laws on their books to keep you enslaved. When discussing the many killings of unarmed black men at the hands of police, the report warned against impunity for state violence. That's all we know is state violence, brothers and sisters, from state to state to state. I don't care whether it's north or south. In this country, they have committed violence against the children of Israel, which has created what they call a human rights crisis that must be addressed as a matter of urgency. Now we have presidents, governors, congressmen, senators, pastors. They all speak about human rights violations that are being carried out around the world. Guess who they forgot? The people who are right in their own backyard. We're not included in this. Can't you see that they don't see us as humans? They can protest around the world about human rights violations that are being committed in other countries where they have no business sticking their nose. But while the people who are in their own country, the children of Israel, are being abused every day. Snopes. This is a fact check, brothers and sisters. Let me show you what we're going to fact check. The claim. Listen to the claim. The United Nations, UN, ruled that the United States must pay slavery reparations to Black Americans. All right, that's the claim. This is what people are touting. They're saying that the United Nations commanded that the United States must pay slavery reparations to Black Americans. What's true? In August 2016, the working group of experts on people of African descent submitted a report to the United Nations Council on Human Rights, asserting that the United States should initiate reparatory justice with respect to the current and historical treatment of Black Americans, and two of several suggestions made to the United Nations by the panel involve financial measures. Okay. They submitted a suggestion. It's not a command. Look, what's false? The UN did not demand or order the U.S. to pay reparations. And the report, which is non-binding and unlikely to be implemented, described reparations as a largely non-financial concept. So the UN did not order the U.S. to pay reparations. They just made a few suggestions. But look what's in parentheses, which is non-binding and unlikely to be implemented. Who's the president when this was submitted? Donald Trump. He had to see this because he's the president of the United States. Could this be one of the reasons why he doesn't want anything to do with the UN, why he's taken America out of the League of Nations and said America alone? Because these people have even suggested that America do something about what they owe and what they've done to Black Americans for all of these years. Look at this. Isaiah 42:22 and 23. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth for a spoil, and none saith, Restore. Where are our brothers and sisters? They're in holes, solitary confinement. They're hidden prison houses behind bars. They are the prey. Who's preying on us? The United States of America. Who's going to deliver us? not the United Nations. Why? Because we are for a spoil. We are a part of this United States economy. We keep their structure flowing. In and out of jail systems, federal dollars, we're the largest consumer group, and none saith restore. So while everyone thought the United Nations had told America to pay us reparations, they didn't do any such thing. The Bible is 100% correct. Nobody's going to come to deliver you or restore you back to your former glory. The only way this can happen is if you turn back to YAHUAH, have the testimony of his Messiah, keep his commandments. Verse 23, who among you will give ear to this? Who's going to listen to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Isaiah was speaking about the time now. The last days, brothers and sisters. It was like they were here. It's like the angels brought them into the future to witness this for themselves. And I guess our brothers, they didn't read the Bible or get the memo, because they're in the Department of Corrections. They're being corrected for what? Their behavior. Against what? This society. The Father told you to obey those who have rule over you. If you don't obey them, guess what? They have the power to put you in the Department of Corrections. This is all game. This is their scheme. They have worked this thing out. They have sat down in large groups. They've had these, discovery groups, so that they can find out how they can keep us down. And here it is. They know the Israelites are lawless. All you have to do is give them laws, and they will break them. Look what they're doing here. They're in a church service. You see the two brothers down on the bottom? They have their hands up, and one has the Bible over here. They're reading the scripture. I guess they didn't read Isaiah 42. They didn't get the memo. The reason that they're there is because they refuse to keep the Father's commandments. The cycle continues. Verse 24. Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not YAHUAH, he against whom we have sinned? We can't blame the white man for this. The only persons that we can blame is ourselves. We have sinned against our mighty one. We have transgressed his law. In Deuteronomy 28, he told us that we will be the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, a lender and not a borrower, that all nations would flow unto us and give us their substance. But then he says, if you transgress my laws, I'm going to turn you over to a strange people. Look what he says next. For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. We are disobedient, brothers and sisters. The Israelites are the lawless ones. The Father sent us here so that we can learn how to be obedient. We would not be obedient to him, so he turned us over to our enemies. They will enact vengeance upon us. They hate us. But everything that was done was because of us, not them. 25. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger, and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about. Yet he knew not. All of this turmoil that we're going through, tribulations, most of us don't know why it's happening, because we have transgressed his laws, and it burned him. Yet he laid it not to heart. Oh, these are just regular things. This is a part of life in America. This is happening to us because we refuse to keep the Father's commandments. So therefore, in America, we have turned into a byword, brothers and sisters. Niggers. Look at the KFC sign here. They got an ape on the top of the sign. Remember, they're talking about us. They call us apes, coons, niggers, negroes, monkeys. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, brothers and sisters. They're very inventive when it comes to insulting us. You see the brothers they have in the picture? Pants hanging down. That's lawless behavior. I remember before I left New York to come to the South, they had passed a law for lewd behavior with your pants hanging down. You can get a fine for it. See, they got two monkeys here in the front having sex. That's what they think about us. That's all we want to do. See the brother behind the Kentucky Fried Chicken sign? All we want to do is lay on the grass, bask in the sun, and have monkey sex, and eat watermelon and fried chicken. And then they say to the right that we're nothing but a bunch of gangbangers, the Bloods and the Crips. And in the back, we're nothing but party people. And we have our beautiful sister here with the big hips standing in the back to show of this licentious, lustful, libidinous behavior that is a part of us. But let me show you the real key to this whole picture that they've created, because Obama was in the White House at this time. Look on the top. You have a picture of KFC Colonel Sanders on the top of a cross. So the white Jesus is now the white KFC. Colonel Sanders is the white Jesus that's upon the cross. Listen, they are showing us exactly what they think of us and how they've reeled us in all of these years. That Jesus is the most destructive thing that ever happened to us. Listen with John Campbell, the one who wrote a book, Negromania, in 1851. Listen what he said. The Negro, if left to himself, will not work. He will lie down and bask in the sun and eat watermelon. I included the watermelon and fried chicken. It is very evident that if slavery were abolished, the free white operative would be compelled to pay all the expenses necessary to support this idle, drunken, lazy population. This is what they believe about you. And you cannot say it's not a valid assumption. It's what we have showed them. Because we are lawless. We are rebels. I don't know if some of the brothers are teaching you not to obey the commandments of the land in which you live. If they are, you need to run from them because it's against what the Mighty One has said. You have to obey these commandments for his sake. You make his name look evil, brothers and sisters, because of this behavior. You're called by his name, Yazrael. Live like you belong to him. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. There is a solution to the problem. If my people which are called by my name, Yazrael, shall humble themselves and pray. We don't want to do that. And seek my face with your heart, mind, and soul. We don't want to do that. And turn from their wicked ways. We definitely don't want to do that. Then, and only then, will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal the land. You're not going to get an answer praying to Jesus, going to church, speaking in tongues, going to college, protesting, running after the things of a white man, having a new iPhone, having the newest kicks, having a Mercedes-Benz. None of that is going to get you into the kingdom of heaven. None of it's going to forgive your sins. None of it's going to cause the land to be healed. You have to follow it the way he has said so. If you don't, you have not applied the equation to your life, and the end will be destruction. But we don't want our sins to be forgiven. We don't want the land to be healed. We want to be just like the evil white people that took us captive. What is our goals here in America today? Fat Trell tells you exactly what we're looking for. Sex, drugs, money, and guns. We want to catch bullets in our gold teeth. This is the example that our children are growing up with. No matter how much you try to keep them from this, when they go out to school, when they go out into the streets, this is what they're going to encounter. They don't want to be left out. They want to look, talk, and act just like these brothers. And this is the outcome. See, this cartoon is from 1876. Look on the bottom. It says, in self-defense. The baby don't have anything. It's a baby. Look what he says on the bottom. It's a little blurry, but I'll see if I can read it to you. I had to kill you. You would have grown up to rule me. This is giving you a picture into the mind of how these evil Europeans think. This is what this whole process of I have to take America or make America great again. We got to take America back. They don't want you to rule over them, brothers and sisters. They will kill you. He's got a gun and a knife. The baby has nothing. There's no remorse in what he's doing here. You're nothing but an animal. Picture an animal ruling over the greatest people on the planet, the white race. We're not going to let that happen. When our Messiah returns, I tell you the truth, I don't think these white folks is going to bend the knee. They're going to have to be destroyed. And if you are here trying to be a part of their society and be like them, and not trying to be like the righteous race that the Father has raised up, you will perish right alongside them. Enoch, chapter 103, verses 10 to 11. Now, let me show you how this book has been written over 6,000 years ago. If it was in the time of Jared, we're talking about over 6,000 years ago, and how on point it is to what is happening now. Enoch said that he wrote these books for the righteous race that would come in the last days in the time of tribulation. This is it. Verse 10. And we have been destroyed and have not found any to help us even with a word. We've learned that already, right? The United Nations, they made a suggestion. They didn't make a command that you have to release these people, give them reparations. We have been tortured. Yeah. And destroyed. We don't even know who we are. And not hope to see life from day to day. Remember Deuteronomy 28 stated that you will see in the morning, you say, I wish it were evening. And in the evening, you say, I wish it were morning, because you're in fear for your life every single day. Verse 11, We hope to be the head and have become the tail. That's Deuteronomy 28 again. We have toiled laboriously and had no satisfaction in our toil, because everything that we worked for was given over to our masters. And we have become the food of the sinners and the unrighteous. Everyone is getting rich off of us. And they have laid their yoke heavily upon us. He said in Deuteronomy 28 that they was going to put a yoke of iron around our necks. Verse 12. They have had dominion over us that hated us and smote us. And to those that hated us, we have bowed our necks, but they pitied us not. Enoch must have been brought into the future. Everything that he has said is so perfect. This prophetic word is so precise. Here's another thing. It only applies to us. No one else can claim that this applies to them. Verse 13. We desired to get away from them, that we might escape and be at rest. Remember, Harriet Tubman took 1,000 slaves into the north, but found no place whereunto we should flee and be safe from them. Remember, Harriet Tubman said there was no one to receive her in this land. She's a stranger in a strange land, and so are you. Look at verse 14. This is crazy how perfect this is. We've saw the evidence before. Watch this. And are complained to the rulers in our tribulation. The United Nations, all the rulers of the world are there. We complained to them in the time of our tribulation, Jacob's trouble. What did we do? We cried out against those who devoured us, the United States of America. But they did not attend to our cries. No, they didn't. All they did was make a suggestion. And would not hearken to our voice. They drowned us out. How did they do that? When the news organizations, this white man's media, they portray us in the media to be savages, which we are carrying out this lawlessness, and the whole world is watching. They're saying, you see, I told you that they were savages. When you let them alone on their own, they will destroy themselves, us, and property. Do you see how perfect and precise this is? How can this be 6,000 years ago that he is seeing this? Verse 15, and they helped those who robbed us and devoured us, and those who made us few. All the countries around the world has aided the United States in this. If you don't speak out against it, you're for it. And we're not talking about just one group of people who were sent to investigate this. We're talking about what happened to all of the other rulers of the other countries. I mean, what happened to England? What happened to France? What happened to Russia? Why is no one aiding us? And they conceal their oppression. Don't you speak about slavery and all of the human rights violations? They make it, if you bring that up, they make it seem like you're the one who did it. And they did not remove from us the yoke of those that devoured us and dispersed us and murdered us. No, they didn't. They doubled down on it. The 13th Amendment. If you break a law, you're guilty of a crime, you're a slave again. And they concealed their murder. They murder our brothers in the streets, and the police, they're not prosecuted for it. It's all covered up. And remembered not that they had lifted up their hands against us. They don't even realize or recognize slavery even happened in this country. They don't remember that. They don't even call it slavery anymore. They call it indentured service now. Brothers and sisters, why is it that we don't see that the Bible is talking about us? The most lawless and stiff-necked people on the planet. Yet, out of this lawless and stiff-necked people, the Father has chosen a remnant, a righteous race that would arise. And we're going to put to silence the ignorance of foolish men. They've never seen nothing like this. They've never seen black men take control of their households, love their wives, raise their children in the admonition of the Mighty One, teach them to keep the law, statutes, and commandments of the kingdom and of this society today. Men that walk upright. We need to silence the voices of these evil men by doing what is right. You see a lot of our brothers, they're out there in the streets and they're cursing like a bunch of sailors, using profanity while they're preaching about YAHUAH, while they're using the Bible. They make us look like a bunch of fools, brothers and sisters. All of these things are designed by our enemy to destroy us. The ones who have a voice like me, they won't acknowledge me. Everyone wants to be lined up with rebels, those who teach them civil disobedience. But I stick to the scriptures, brothers and sisters. Submit yourselves unto them who have rule over you, that it may go well for you. It is the will of YAHUAH. Shalom.